What's going on, Hamilton? This is Matthew Green, your very proud NDP candidate right here in Hamilton Center. You know the deal. This is Parliament to the People. This is a chance where we get to bring the issues of this federal election right to you, and you, in turn, get to respond to me and let me know what are your major issues. What are the things that, if you were prime minister for a day, you would be taking care of? That's what I'd like to know. I want to know really what's on your mind. So here's your chance to do that. Parliament to the People. It is Sunday afternoon. It is dreary. We've had an incredible weekend. We have people that are out there right now going door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. We had an incredible launch yesterday. Amazing, amazing time. Shout out to all of our campaign volunteers who are really about connecting with people. I know that right now there's this national discourse about the campaign being reduced to two parties and you only having two party choices. And the logic is so flawed because the logic says you need to vote conservative in order to keep out the fascists. Well, guess what? The two party system in the United States of America is exactly what led to fascism to begin with. In Canada, in our Westminster system, there is room for all types of voices. So there is an opportunity. We're seeing Carney take the lead, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the election, but to presuppose the outcome before the election even happens, to reduce it to the vibes of the different leaders is going to be a challenge. It is going to be a challenge for decisions that are made, not just in this current crisis, but for generations to come. That's why in our system, there has to be strong opposition that will hold the government accountable, regardless of who's in, right? To have that working class value. It's Canada Owens Labour Party in the House of Commons, fighting for people, making sure that the voices of everyday people continue to be well represented. Look, I know it's an uncertain time. I know that people are struggling. I live right here in Hamilton Center. I totally understand why people are afraid, but we can't allow fear to drive this entire election cycle to a point where we hand over a supermajority to a Goldman Sachs banker. That would be incredibly problematic for working class people. I know that there's no scenario where any kind of economic recovery would actually include workers when the decisions are being made by a central banker, somebody who at Brookfield made millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars for Brookfield off of breaking the backs of working class people. That is the situation we're in. And so I am online right now, happy to chat with anybody who's in the comment section. Boots on the ground. Shout out to you, man. I would love to hear your perspective. Boots on the ground. If you are on right now and you are down for it, I'm going to go ahead and put the invitation link. I'm using Restream. You'd be proud of me, Steve, that I'm using Restream right now. If you cut and paste that and put it in, I'll be able to invite you on. I would love to hear what you have to say. What's going on in the prairies? I know this, that when they do this predictive polling and it's regional, like Hamilton as an amalgamated region has deeply rural farming, agricultural communities in the outset of like, Bimbrook, Flamborough, Waterdown. Shout out to all those rural communities. But they have very little demographically and interest wise in comment with people in Hamilton Center. So when they do these aggregated polls, like they're not polling Hamilton Center. Steve, I would absolutely love to jump on your live stream. I'm going to keep it real. I'm happy to have the discussion and would love that. So if you send me a DM and let me know when you want to make that happen, I will absolutely make that happen because there's certainly lots of questions to be answered in this election. And it doesn't seem like we've been able to break through in the media and be able to do that on a mass scale, which is why I do Parliament to the People. I want to make sure that I can connect with people where they're at. We have people who are going door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. We have people who are phone banking right now in the room next to me. But I like the digital door knock. The digital door knock allows us to have this discussion across like 5 platforms. And meet people where they're at, invite them on. If anybody wants to pick up on that invitation link, if you put that in your browser, I'll get that notification and I'll invite you on. We can have the discussion. And here's the beautiful thing about democracy in Canada is I'm not even saying, I'm not suggesting you have to agree with the things I have to say. I want to hear from you. I want to know who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about, and we can have discussions. It should be a deliberative process. Elections should never be a coronation. Elections should never be the reduction to absurdity, right? That says you only have one choice to vote or you only have two choices to vote. Okay? It does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. So I want to have a discussion that includes the voices of the variety of different ideologies in the country, of the interests, right? Understanding that mainstream media is going to force feed you what the moment is, what the question is. No, I want to know from you what you have on your mind. So if you're logged on, I would love to have the chat. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Matthew Green. I'm an NDP member, former member of parliament, candidate now seeking re-election. When an election happens, I'm no longer MP, but I've been serving as a member of parliament right here in Hamilton Center for 6 years. And before that, 4 years as a city councilor. So 10 years of serving in the city. And I'm in this election where it feels a lot like I'm shadowboxing against candidates who aren't showing up, who don't live here, who are riding the coattails of their leader, who are just like mailing it in, hoping that they catch a wave and maybe catch a break. And I'm up against these predictive polling measures, these algorithms that are going to try to predetermine what the election outcome is. It's actually quite frightening. Like if the plan now is to take a couple of sample sets across regions, do predictive polling, and then just decide for people what they should vote, it comes pretty close to that like techno, bro ideology of just like having algorithms and AI decide for us who should be in power, how they should govern, and what policies they should be putting forward. Deeply, deeply, deeply troubling. Shout out to Denise all the way out there in the Atlantic region. We miss you here in Hamilton. Congratulations on your coronation medal. That's amazing. We miss you here. Certainly, I know you probably don't miss the grind of these elections, having gone through so many of them with your family yourself. So give DC my best. We are here in a dogfight. I know DC is a dogfighter too, but we are not taking anybody for granted. We are going to go, vote for vote, volunteer for volunteer, campaign team for campaign team against anybody. If it's a toss up, we're going to cross the finish line because we've built something beautiful right here in Hamilton, a beautiful coalition of working class interests that are really hyper locally focused, ensuring that the working class values of Hamilton Center will continue to be well represented in Ottawa. That is the plan. That is the mantra. That is the mission here. We are blocking out the noise of the national campaign, and we are hyper focused on what's happening right here in Hamilton Center. That is the game. So if you're online and you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, your chat questions will come up. I'll see them through Restream. If you're on TikTok, it'll be down below. We got people on Instagram. Shout out to you, Andrew. You're out there in the Atlantic region. Feel free to jump on. Wow. Angela says on Instagram, my rent just jumped $200 more a month. That is criminal. That is absolutely criminal. Angela says, address us in the prairies. Here's what I want to say, Angela. Actually, I'm going to put the invite link in Instagram as well in case you want to jump on and let us know what's going on in the prairies. Of course, you know better than I do what the biggest challenges are right there in the prairies. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the comment section for you so you can jump on. Oh, what's going on there? Post. Let's try that. There it is. There it is. Someone just said no sound. I don't know what happened there. Do you have sound? If you have sound and you can hear me, feel free to do that. We got some people joining on right now. on TikTok and Instagram. Shout out to those people who are on Facebook. Luann says there's no sound. I had this issue before, but it looks okay. It looks like some people can hear me. So if you can hear me, put it in the comment section. If you can't, okay, we got Angela's got sound. Shout out to you, Richard. People on TikTok. I love this because it's like political roulette. I don't know who's going to join the chat. I have my screen right here. I'm following along on these platforms and I'm taking questions on the fly, unfiltered. Political roulette. You can jump in and ask me anything. So that's what Parliament to the People is all about. The short form, Parle to the people, speaking to the people. This is what it's all about. If you have questions or you want to join the live stream, check it out. Angela's way out in Lloydminster, a city of barely 40,000 people. Angela, would you jump on this live stream with me? I want to invite you into discussion and hear what's going on out there in Saskatchewan. I have visited Saskatoon. I've been to Regina. I haven't been to Lloydminster, but this is what I know about the prairies, Winnipeg, Edmonton, right? These places. I believe that the people, the working class people in Hamilton Center, have more in common with people in the prairies, even with the people living in the north, west coast, Atlantic region, than they ever will with the Bay Street class. And the corporate giants want to reduce this election to two corporate parties, two corporate candidates for prime minister. One is Bay Street friendly, Pierre Poilievre, very Bay Street friendly. The other, Mark Carney, is Wall Street, not just Wall Street friendly, but of and from Wall Street. I'm a working class kid from Hamilton Center. Those two guys have nothing in common with me. Nothing in common with me. I need to know that no matter what happens in this election, that we are going to have working class interests at the table, because left to those two, Wall Street and Bay Street, left to those two, like we really don't have choice. It's the same reduced democracy as the United States of America, the duopoly of the two corporate parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. They have class solidarity with those parties in the same way that the new Progressive Conservative Party, wearing the liberal brand under Mark Carney, a true conservative, versus the far right populist, Pierre Poilievre, also a conservative. You know, you have a choice between two conservative parties or us. That's where we're at. So if you are online and you can't just click the link, Angela, cut and paste the link that I've put in, put it into your comment section, and you can jump right on. Kat said you wrote me an email about a concern, so our staff didn't reply, and why. I'm happy to take that concern now. We get absolutely inundated. And this is the one thing that I want to share with people about our constituency office here in Hamilton Center is we have no possible way to keep up with the volume of the challenge that we have, but for to continue to hire more people and keep the fight up. So if you're on TikTok and you have an email or you had a question and I didn't respond, I'm going to go ahead and take accountability for that. And I'm going to apologize to you directly for that. We typically triage our emails and we get dozens and dozens. We get bombarded by campaigns across the country on different issues. If it's a bulk email that goes to a bunch of people, it's unlikely you're going to get an individual response. If it's a constituency email, then absolutely it's the case that that we need to get to you. So somebody wanted to know why I wasn't knocking doors. We've been out all day. I popped in here to jump online real quick and to also download some of the footage from yesterday's incredible launch. It is amazing. We are going door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. But if we're looking at numbers, and I've been looking at them, we got great teams around the door. This is a good way for me to have a digital door knock, a digital campaign. It is increasingly becoming the fact, just as you have logged on to this today, that people are actually tuning in on their phones and engaging more sometimes than they are like answering phones or answering the doors. So we're looking at all the different ways, all the different ways. Kat says, it is absolutely my job. I have two jobs. I have a job in Ottawa. I'm a legislator. I'm in Ottawa working on legislation. I'm on committees. I'm doing that part. We have an office here that responds to the constituency issues. We've hired 5 staff on a budget that's really only accorded for 3. Every time a government cuts funding to direct services, be it Service Canada, CRA, immigration, every time those services get cut, we get the bulk of the people coming into our office, and it's our job to help them navigate these processes of government. So that's where it is. I'm trying to keep up with all of the native dad. Stay deadly. Good to see you. Appreciate you, dude. Yo, it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Do I have insight on what will happen to Sarah Jama? No, I don't. That's a question you're going to have to ask Sarah. I mean, obviously, she is a young and incredible activist, organizer, brilliant person who is going to find the work that's going to be best suited for her in this moment. And I wish her, and will continue to support her, and wish her the best of luck. I know she's doing some amazing things, but I'm going to let Sarah talk for Sarah. That's what I'm going to do. I don't ever want to be talking on behalf of somebody. Went from homeless priority status to finding out they took my status away and had to re-add it, but no reason given as to why it was removed. Imagine if I missed out on an apartment. That is horrible. Freak dust. Absolutely horrible. The municipal housing lists, dealing with the city of housing, some of the other providers, it could become a black hole. It could become this abyss that it feels like sometimes when they have a huge waiting list, that every now and again there's a glitch in the matrix and people start to experience what you experienced. They clear the waiting list, reshuffle people, and force them to reapply. It is not great. It is not great at all. So the best way to reach her is to check out her socials. I would say, for people that are asking questions on TikTok about Sarah, I would say find her socials, reach out, send her a DM. That would be what I would want to do. If I were you, I certainly can't give out her contact details. That's obvious. There's questions about how people can help the NDP break back into Halifax. Again, Halifax is it. Here's the thing: voting, and I know the system is completely made to make people feel like they're estranged. Voting is absolutely the least you can do. It is the lowest level of electoral engagement you can have. The highest level is engaging in campaigns and supporting people to reach out to your neighbors, to find people that share your values and to support them, to go door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. That is absolutely what needs to happen. And if you're able to do that for great candidates in Halifax, I would love for you to do that. Failing that, it is so important to get involved in the riding associations. Our whole party system was supposed to be about local communities and local democracy, identifying and engaging people in their communities, nominating candidates, selecting candidates, supporting candidates, and then forming a party in Ottawa. What's happened, though, is that the parties have concentrated power in the leadership so much so that now it feels like it's the central party who is like sending messages, sending people, sending candidates, sending democracy to the constituencies. We need to reverse that. We definitely need to go back to the grassroots. So, Angela says that you want to join. You're happy to do that. There's a good, I'm going to post it again. So cut and paste, put that into your browser. Lots of good chat on Instagram, lots of good chat on TikTok. We don't have as many people this go around on Facebook. That's okay. We're just going to keep chatting. For those that are saying get out there and knock doors, yes, knocking doors is a good thing. I do a ton of knocking, and digital door knocking is also a thing. So I'm able to reach out to so many people that I wouldn't normally reach out to. There are people who give me feedback. It is being, very politically vulnerable because you're just reaching out. You never know what you're going to get. There's people every now and again who won't support me. Like, I stay humble. I know that even with 50% support, 50% of the people don't support me. I know that when we get 100 calls a day, there will be scenarios when we don't return a call. And when we get thousands of emails a week, it is also just statistically the case that sometimes on the first email, it may fall through the crack. It is absolutely true. We are every bit as human in our systems and principles in our office with a very small staff as anybody else, you know? So I apologize if that's the case. And for those that want to engage, you have the ability to do that. We're going back to this. It says, I'm going back to the comments here. I think that, yes, Angela, copy the link into your browser and then click on that. How do I plan on increasing stability? That is a very important question. Catitude, talking about crime increasing, homelessness increasing, and future job losses. What you talk about when you list those three things are the symptoms of an economy that doesn't care about people, an economy that constantly puts profits over people, an economy that has been captured by the banking class and the real estate class that drive the housing costs up, by an economy that allows our food to be controlled by a few families, a few corporations that basically have the market cornered, a cartel in food, a cartel in banking, a cartel in telecommunications. We have to break that up and allow more competition within our economy to drive the cost down. We know that the cost of food, that there's been investigations in price fixing. We know they price fix with fuel. We know that banks collude on interest rates. So when the interest rates go up and your wages stay stagnant, you can't pay the bills. When you can't pay the bills, you get evicted. When you get evicted, you end up on the streets. You're homeless. You have nothing to eat. You don't have enough food. You don't have shelter. What are you likely to do? You're likely to turn to crime. Crime is a symptom of poverty and social pressure. By taking care of people's basic necessities, right, which the government used to do. So I'm not talking about, some future unimagined. I'm talking about our past. There was a time in this country where we purposely built, when I say we, the federal government purposely built 1,000,000 homes, 1,000,000 after World War II. And so if we could do that after World War II, we can absolutely do that now. How do we break up the cartels? We can have antitrust legislation. The interesting thing about Canada is we like to look down our nose, the United States, but there's actually some political features and democratic features in America and other places in the world that make it illegal to have cartels, monopolies, oligarchies. Now, we are watching what's happening with the tech bros, and absolutely America has its problems too, but we can break up the cartels. We can demand more competition. We can make it so there's easier barriers to entry. When there's high barriers to entry, there's low competition. When all the money is concentrated in the big banks that finance the big corporations, so the small business owner can't get access to capital, that's a problem. How do I know that? I was a small business owner for 10 years, and I had to fight with my bank to finance the growth of my business. So you're right. Our country was built on oligopoly. It does not have to be that way. I believe a compelling vision for the future of the country is a cooperative economy, a shift away from winner takes all, zero sum, I win, you lose, into a cooperative economy. What is a cooperative economy? I'm glad you asked. A cooperative economy distributes the wealth to those that create it. Who creates wealth in this country? The working class. So in other words, if employees had shares in the cooperative corporation that they're working in, then the profits would be redistributed to the employees. You could extend it further. You could allow customers or the community to also buy shares in the local business so that when there's profit, the profit is reinvested locally. But what happens with big multinational corporations in a capitalist, a cutthroat, capitalist, parasitic economy? They take all the value from our communities and they shutter it to places like Bermuda. Just ask Mark Carney. Just ask Brookfield. Just ask Goldman Sachs. That's what happens when we allow the capital to be controlled by so few people that small business owners, the mom and pop shops, the true entrepreneurs of this country can't access capital to grow their business while simultaneously competing with the biggest companies in the world. That is absurd. That is absolutely absurd. It's not communism, it's socialism. It simply puts the values of workers and the working class over that of Bay Street. It's pretty simple. I don't believe that somebody who buys a share and sits back and never swings a hammer, or never actually goes to work deserves the distribution of the wealth more than the people who are actually creating the wealth. That's basic. That's basic fairness. You can call it whatever you want. But you know as well as I do that the profits for whatever company you work for are literally the excess value of your wages versus the value of your work. So we have been estranged from our labor. What do I mean by that? The value of our lives that we trade for a wage is so much lower than the value we actually create that we have a system where the people who do the work don't benefit from it. How do we know that? They tax your income and not the capital. What do I mean by that? Your hours times your wages is your income. Income tax fuels our economy rather than corporate tax. Why is that? Our low corporate tax rate does not incentivize redistribution or reinvestment of wealth into Canada. In fact, it does the opposite. And it incentivizes the hoarding of capital to be paid out and distributed through Bay Street. So in other words, if we want to have productivity, if we want to have a competitive GDP, we need to have an economy that incentivizes reinvestment into Canada, into Canadian workers, into training, into research and development. That's what we need. We got people now lined up. Let's do this. Justin, we are live and direct. Justin, let people know who you are, where you're from, and what you're all about.
So my name is Justin Coleman. I'm from Hamilton. I work at the Hamilton Convention Center doing security.
So tell me, what if you were prime minister for a day, what would be your number one issue?
Housing and disability.
Yeah. There's a comment in the comment section on TikTok. I appreciate Catitude you jumping on here, and I'm glad we got a chance to connect because you're really adding some really good value to this discussion. Catitude says fairness doesn't exist in the new normal. Do you agree with that statement, Justin?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And would you not agree that regardless of your political stripe, you're working full time, you should have wages to be able to take care of yourself, to pay your rent, to pay for food, to pay for the necessities of life, and not fall short at the end of the month? Do you agree with that statement?
100%.
Yeah, basic economic fairness. Now, you brought up disability. I'm going to take it one step further. I believe fairness in the economy includes people that don't work. Here's why. Because I don't value people based on their GDP productivity in the economy. I value them based on their humanity. What do you think about that, Justin?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Definitely.
So tell me more about your priorities.
Right now, I'm like going through a lot. Just trying to find housing. I updated my yearly review with them, and that's when I found out that my name, my priority status wasn't checked. They don't know what happened, and it took them a couple days. They're like, "Yeah, you're back on the list," but I might have lost out on a place or two.
That's wild, man. That's so wild. Yeah, I call that administrative sabotage. When these systems fail people in ways that have real impacts on whether or not they have affordable housing or food to eat or money at the end of the month, that's a form of administrative sabotage, and that should not happen. There are some questions here in the comment section. Angela, I'm sorry that you can't connect. I would have loved to have had you on. Do feel free to jump on anytime I'm on. One of the questions said, how do projected polls work? I see some polls saying that Hamilton Center is a toss-up, but I've seen very few signs that aren't NDP, so it doesn't feel accurate. Projected polls are this kind of algorithmic mathematical voodoo that takes past elections, past trends, weights it statistically with some formula dealing with incumbency, but doesn't actually poll people in Hamilton Center. To this day, I have not seen a poll in Hamilton Center, but that's okay, because in Hamilton Center, what we do as New Democrats is we outwork people. We always assume we're 10 points behind, and we never take anybody for granted. This is a very uncertain time. People are confused. There's this rush to support Mark Carney. People, some people, when I talk to them, I have to remind them, Mark Carney's not actually on the ballot here. The Liberal who's on the ballot here wakes up in Mississauga, drives 45 minutes into Hamilton, and then, goes about his merry way. He is not from Hamilton. He is not of Hamilton. The guy from the Conservative Party, same thing, 45 minutes away from St. Catharines. I don't know these guys, and I don't plan to see them after this election either. They're visitors. They're just passing through. Having said that, Grace on TikTok, shout out to you. I'm hoping we keep you as our MP. We need your advocacy. I appreciate that. I totally do. But it's going to take effort. It's going to take people going out and voting. We cannot take this moment for granted, because there are very real scenarios where people just get caught up in this wave and they just either stay home or, or they vote Liberal. God knows what. So there's some conservative questions that I want to ask or answer, because I'm assuming they're conservative, but I want to make sure that those are logged on for TikTok. They don't know who I am. My name is Matthew Green. I am an NDP candidate running for re-election right here in Hamilton Center. I'm a labor critic. I'm also the critic for workplace and jobs, and what a time it is to be in those roles. So the comment is, what is the host's opinion on the World Economic Forum and Canada's role there? So here's the thing, Rob, from TikTok. Here's the thing. This might be unsettling for you, but I'm going to say it so you know exactly where I'm coming from. I am a democratic socialist. What does that mean? I believe capitalism is failing us, and I believe that corporate interests making decisions on behalf of democracy ceases to be democracy. I think the World Economic Forum is like a country club for the world's corporate elite, and couldn't be further away from the values that I have as a democratic socialist. I believe that neighbors in my neighborhood should have more democratic control over the economy than somebody in Davos or somebody in Geneva or somebody in New York or London. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see economic sovereignty, where we're not being ruled by multinationals, where the public has democratic control, not just at election time, but over the economy and over their workplaces. That's what I believe. You might not believe that. You might come to the World Economic Forum critiques in a very different way. You might believe that it's a conspiracy to replace populations. I don't know. You might believe that it's, this cabal of people, the Trilateral Commission and all these other things, Bilderbergs. I can tell you this, that as a socialist, you'll never find socialists there. You're going to find the corporate capitalist elite there, the bankers, right? The elite politicians. You're going to find, media there, corporate media. You're not going to find me. So hopefully that answers your question in a clear way. Hopefully it answers your question in a clear way. Keep in mind, this guy gets a 6-figure salary. It's true, I do, as a member of parliament. There's no denying that. I don't deny that. Here's the thing, Rob. We're in a social democratic country. Oh no! Canada, healthcare, education, roads, firefighting, joint services. Those are all forms of socialism, Rob. Which one do you want to trade in? Which one do you want to pay back for? Do you want to have to pay cops to come to your house case by case? Do you want to have to pay the fire to come to your house like a private fire system? Do you want everybody to have to be $70,000, $80,000 in debt to go to school? Do you want a pregnancy to cost your family $20,000? No, no, you don't. So I believe in democracy. Democracy is about values and choices, and we actually have the choice of how our economies run. You have a problem with the World Economic Forum. Sounds to me like you have a problem with capitalism, because that's what the World Economic Forum stands for. Absolutely. So dig deeper. Ask tougher questions. Ask tougher questions. We got more questions, more people in TikTok that are here. Lots of people engaging. I'm happy to have the discussion. There are people tuning in from Facebook. Shout out to you. I'm going to check that out. Yes, thank you for that term. Recently lost ODSP as a result of administrative sabotage. Yes, when people have their core services taken away, it's not only administrative sabotage, it's a form of economic violence. That's what it is. So we need to have a government that works for people, not one, that is constantly jerked around by the whims of, political discourse that's going to cut austerity. Look, the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, they're both austerity parties. Liberal Party is a death by 1,000 cuts. Conservative Party is an axe. It's a hatchet. That's what it is. So here we are. What other questions do we have in the chat? I'm checking it out. All these questions, and be open to answer. You might not like, and maybe learn some. Okay, here we go. Gregor is engaging on TikTok. We haven't released the full platform yet. Paragrider says, imagine our justice system and our law enforcement would look like if they were paid by the users. Henny says, why do producers and farmers tend to vote conservative? That's an important question. People vote against their own material conditions all the time. All the time. All politics are identity politics. That word was used to kind of target marginalized groups, racialized groups, gender. It was used to describe everybody but for, for the what white folks would consider the average Canadian. But guess what? Quebec politics is identity politics. Alberta politics is very much identity politics. Are you telling me you go to a stampede and that's not an identity politic? It sure is. That's okay. People have many identities. Wear it. I'm not mad at you, but don't try to denigrate it as it being something else. I'm not saying you're doing that right now, but I think what happens is that people take the identity of an interest that works against their material condition. If you look at the way in which the corporate attacks on farming have happened, to see how many family-owned farms we've lost in this country to big corporate giants that Canada used to own its meat processing and food processing plants. And now again, we have a cartel of those. Look at Cargill. It's a cartel. Foreign owned, right? Foreign owned. It's a cartel. So lots of opinions. Nikki, join in the chat. Feel free to join if you would like. Nikki, join the chat. I'm going to put it back into the comment section. It's a digital door knock right now. We're having the opportunity to talk to people across 5 platforms. So even if your platform doesn't have to too many people engaged across the whole thing, we're getting people here. So let's go back to Instagram. Instagram, lots of comments here. Let's also admit that unconscious biases are rampant. You are absolutely right. Freak Dust, you were there. Yes. Random question. Did Bill C-63 pass? I don't know. I can go and check out if Bill C-63. The reason why I don't know is because I would vote on dozens of bills every week, and so I don't always remember them. The Canadian Human Rights Act was first reading. No, I don't think it. Well, let's go back. One of the things that you can do, this is good for people who are interested in how bills work, is you can visit openparliament.ca. Let me see if I can grab that link and put that in the comment sections as well. Right here. You can go in there and search by term, bill, riding, issue, MP, whatever you'd like. Paste. Okay, post. So you can check that out there. Wow. Yeah, you should be able to click on that link, Angela, if you want to jump on this. I'd be fascinated. What you're doing is you're pasting the link in the comment section. You have to take the link, the invitation link, put it into your browser, and then hit enter. When you do that, I'll get a notification that you're in a room. So there's a point that came up on Instagram, lots of comments on TikTok, but the point that came up on Instagram said, how can we get back to nationalizing new industry? Increasingly concerned about the LPC, CPC selling our resources away that we don't see the benefit. How do we fight against it? I don't know that we necessarily have to nationalize new industry as much as looking at the old industries, rail, natural resources. The fact that we don't have a sovereign wealth fund in this country, if you look at places like Norway, if we had had a sovereign wealth fund in Canada that took our oil and gas, mining and lumber industries and allow the true value of that land to be captured and redistributed to the common good, we would have world-class education, free world-class healthcare, and we would have social housing that is dignified, safe, and affordable for everybody. What happens when we have low-cost, deeply affordable housing? If you're paying more than 30% of your income on your rent or your lease, you are precarious. The more money you spend on your rent or your lease, the less money you have to spend in the local economies, the restaurants, the shops, the stores, local, entertainment. That's what makes local economies grow. That's what supports the working class, the family businesses, the entrepreneurial class. That's what's up. And so we should have sovereign wealth funds that capture the value of our economy to deliver for the common good rather than privatize all the profits to multinational corporations that take their profits out of this country and don't pay tax while leaving the workers with stagnant low wages. That's bullshit. It doesn't have to be that way. Does not have to be that way. So lots of comments in the comments section. People are talking about it's expensive because of government. We would be broke. Mark Pedersen, we would be broke if this guy gets into power. You're broke now. You're broke now, Mark. You're broke now because you're not getting paid enough. You're broke now because you're paying too much interest. You're broke now because your interest rates are too high. Your phone bill is too high. Your food costs are too high. That's why you're broke. Come on, man. Do the math on it. You can't simultaneously have record profits in food and gas and everything else, stagnant wages, and get ahead. That cannot happen. I, by the way, don't believe in taxing people's income. I believe in taxing their capital. I don't want to tax your work. I want to tax your assets. What does that mean? If you're a billionaire, you should pay more. It's simple. It's fairness. So feel free to have a different opinion. Somebody commented on TikTok that they grew up in a co-op. That is a great example of a cooperative economy. Cooperative housing states they're going to keep it affordable in perpetuity. Decisions that are made by the co-op are democratic for all the people who own the units, all the people who reside there, including the renters, right? That's how we build democracy at the local level in our community rather than being at the whims of a goddamn condo developer or these, $800,000 semi-detached homes in the suburban area. Those aren't affordable. They're not affordable for anybody. And you'll never actually own the home. You'll have it as a mortgage till death, mort, till death. You'll have it. You'll never own it. You're just renting it from the banks as long as you work and pay wages. So it says, why did the NDP lose vote share to Carney when Carney is further right than Justin? Because people are afraid, quite rightly, they're confused. And that's what the media and all these predictive polls are telling them to do. There are people in this election who want to skip the election and just have a decision. That's not how elections work. It's not how democracy works. When I criticize Mark Carney, liberals clutch their pearls. They say, now's not the time. An election is not the time to talk about ideas and critique ideas and vote on people's track records. It's absolutely the time. And having a duopoly is a terrible thing. Terrible thing. So, capital is how we can compete in AI. That's an incomplete statement, Mark. What do you mean by that? Elaborate. Carney has the backing of the courtocracy. Goddamn right he does. Carney is not a Bay Street guy. Carney is a Wall Street guy. Carney is a Goldman Sachs guy, a Brookfield guy, a billionaire class guy. He's not even local. He just came back to save us from ourselves. Is he respectable and nicer than Poilievre? Yes, but that's a pretty low bar because Poilievre is not a likable guy. It's a low bar. You know what I mean? But it doesn't mean that he should run unimpeded. It doesn't mean that we should reduce our election to a coronation of Mark Carney. That is a problem in and of itself. So AI systems need. Trump has attracted a. Oh my God, we're talking to a Trumper. Oh my goodness. Attracted $1 trillion in investment. Bro, that did not happen. He just made that statement. Donald Trump speaking does not make it so. Donald Trump saying, we're going to have $1 trillion in investment doesn't mean $1 trillion was invested. That is absurd. I truly hope that you don't believe that. I truly hope that in this day and age, that you have access to the internet and you do research that goes beyond Truth Social or TikTok, because that did not happen factually at all. So somebody says, my biggest concern is the lack of protection and lawlessness. Even though we propagate democracy, how can we make sure it serves all people and not just one race? That's an important question. That's a very important question. Democracy happens all the time. It should happen not just at elections, but in between elections. It should happen at the local level. There should be local decision making. That is not the case right now. That decision making, at the municipal level, whether it comes to law enforcement, policing, we used to think it's local. It's not local. It's run by the province. How do you know that? Because the police boards are in effect a basic puppet function of the province, right? And the budgets for policing are put on property taxes at the highest rates, where people are paying more than 20% of their property taxes on policing, while simultaneously crime goes up. If spending on more policing resulted in lower crime, we'd see lower crime rates in Hamilton. We do not. When I was a city councilor, they had a $160 million budget. Now they have an over $200 million budget. Crime's gone up. I don't know what to tell you. Those are the facts. So here's the thing about people being disappointed in leaders. The leader's not on your ballot. If you have a decent candidate in your community who's fighting for your community, vote for the candidate. And I say that for all parties. The concentration of power into our 3 or 4 leaders is super problematic for our democracy. It's a step away from democracy and towards an authoritarian tendency. What do I mean by that? Is if there's like 3 people who are deciding the future of the country, 4 or 5 people even, that's a problem. The Westminster parliamentary system was designed to have local representation, find, local candidates, local nominations that send people to Ottawa to represent local interests, not the other way around. So find people that share your values and support them. The federal workers lawsuit was thrown out. What will the NDP do to make sure courts are applying the law? If you followed that, you would know that I was integral to that class action lawsuit. And absolutely, it was a travesty. I got excited because Mark and I found common ground. Yes, this is the place when I speak in a nonpartisan way. What I mean by that, when I speak of democracy, I can have my opinions of what a democratic socialism looks like, but there is lots of places where I find common ground with conservatives, particularly when it comes to distribution of power. And that's okay. I believe that if you have deeply held conservative values in your community, those voices and values should be represented in Ottawa in an equal way, where members of parliament, backbenchers have power to voice the conscience of their constituency, regardless of their politics. It's not a partisan statement, it's a democratic ethics statement. And that is the common ground, which is why I think proportional representation would add more diversity of ideas and force parties to cooperate rather than drive wedge politics to try to attract 8% of the population using fear and hatred and division. Yeah. If you're living in a rural area that has values, I just say rural because it's far away from where I'm at. I'm very Hamilton Center, obviously urban center. So I don't pretend to know the needs and priorities of people living in the north, of farmers living in the rural areas, agricultural sector, although Hamilton as a port town has a huge agricultural industry, but I wouldn't confuse that with knowing what farmers want. I believe that Canadians, all Canadians, deserve to have representation in the House of Commons that reflects their interests. That's a basic function of democracy. That's being eroded. That even within the Conservative Party, there are conservative voices that are ostracized and marginalized and isolated because the leader holds so much power there. I watch it with my own eyes. Pierre Poilievre has got one of the most autocratic tendencies. He's not even letting his candidates speak. His candidates don't even go to debates. They don't respect local democracy. They don't respect local constituency. If they did, they would allow their local candidates to engage in the election, but they don't because it's way too democratically concentrated in the leadership. It says, this guy says Jagmeet would isolate Canada. He can't deal with people across the aisle. What do you mean by that, Mark? What do you mean by that? This is the irony. Okay, Mark on TikTok, you and I are going to have a conversation, Mark. I need you to reflect on the contradictions that you just outlined in the chat on TikTok, where you simultaneously accused our party of cooperating with the Liberals, and then you went ahead and said that Jagmeet can't work across the aisle. What does that mean, Mark? What does that mean when you present that kind of contradiction in your political understanding? I believe, by the way, cooperation in a Westminster system is essential to a healthy and vibrant democracy. When people say that cooperation in the House of Commons is undemocratic, they're actually attacking democratic institutions. If you watch me at committee, you would see me vote with the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives on dozens and dozens and dozens of motions. Watch it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I cooperate on the issue, on an issue by issue basis, which is how a parliamentary system should work. We do it all the time. There's times when we support liberal, conservative, Bloc, Green Party motions on a case-by-case basis. We do it all the time. You know who doesn't do that, though? Pierre Poilievre doesn't do that. Even if it's good for Canadians and in the best interest of Canadians, he will refuse to cooperate because in his ideology, cooperation is a sign of weakness. It's got no place in democracy. It's winner take all. He's the strong man who's never even been, outside of a small menial job, has never been in the private sector and had to earn his own keep. He's never had to do that. So I'm challenging the conservative people who are logging on right now to think hardly about the contradictions they present. The reason why we ruled out working with the Conservative Party is because the Conservative Party is not interested in cooperation for the benefit of Canadians. We've witnessed that. We spent 2.5 years with a demagogue, Pierre Poilievre. We're not stupid. When you tell us who you are, we believe you. Simple as. But I'll tell you, there was lots of things when Erin O'Toole was in that was common ground. It was reasonable. We supported it. Things on mental health, things in the environment. You'll recall that Pierre Poilievre ran on a carbon tax just in 2021, campaigned on it in Carleton. Campaigned on carbon tax, my friend. And guess what? Here we are now. Carbon tax is gone. He's got nothing left. He's out of ideas. We're in a free fall. It is what it is. Parliament to the people. If you're just tuning in, the question is on Instagram, do I support AI regulation? You're goddamn right I do. AI, oh my God. AI is so far out of the grasp of everyday legislators and business in governments around the world. We have no idea. We don't even know what we don't know when it comes to AI. And right now, it is absolutely essential that there are ethical boundaries that are put on companies that deal with AI, and climate boundaries that are put on the way in which AI uses resources. There needs to be ethical boundaries on that. This idea of an unfettered market where we just allow these oligarchs to run roughshod, and we use, all of our natural resources to fund these stations, and it's apocalyptic to me. I don't see that as the future at all. In fact, when you talk about jobs and job security, you have to look no further than the automation of work to replacing people's jobs. We're producing more steel with a fraction of the workers. It's wild. AI has no business in government. We don't pay for that. We pay for people to do their job. I agree with you, Big Red. I agree with you. We should not be replacing government services or politicians with algorithms. That's super problematic. When you got Elon Musk, the fascist, the techno-fascist out of the States, trying to do what he's doing right now with that corporate coup that he has, the United States of America, to eliminate all the public services in order to privatize it so he can profit from it. You're no longer in democracy if that's the case. You're in a techno-feudalism. And your new overlord is Elon Musk, the fascist. That's what they're headed to. And I will have no part. I will fight tooth and nail against that here in Canada. Woo, you guys got me fired up. Parliament to the people. Welcome to those who have joined on. We have some people on Instagram. We have some people on TikTok. And we have a handful of people on Facebook. It is now almost 5:00. I am going to be logging off. There's a couple of comments here. I'll do a fire round. Somebody says AI is coming whether you want it or not. Fair enough, Mark. We can still manage it. We can still regulate it. That's how governments work, Mark. That's my role as an MP, and if reelected, I would be doing that. My one of the committees I was on was ethics, privacy, and access to information, and I absolutely believe there needs to be guardrail with AI, for sure, and that's our job. We have that ability. Mark continues to ask questions. He's asking, would Canada be allies with Italy, or are they fascist? Allies with Italy? Allies with the EU, yes. Do I think Italy's fascist? Yeah, I actually do think it's kind of fashy. Mussolini's granddaughter's in there. They got very fascist tendencies. But the EU should be one of our trading diversities that should happen. Yes. And we should be looking at Asia, continental Africa and South America. We need to diversify our economy to have trading partners all around the world so that we never put ourselves in this situation to be extorted by the whims of, Donald Trump. That's wild to me. So, other questions: attacking, not educating. I got a certain style. Not everybody. Oh, that's about Carney attack ads. Carney attack ads are not a good look. You know what, Lindsay? We're in an election. Carney does not deserve to be coronated. Carney deserves to have his track record critiqued. Jagmeet has his track record critiqued. I have my track record critiqued. Why is it that liberals think that in a Westminster system with multiple parties, when liberals are putting attack ads out, why is it that liberals demand a coronation of Mark Carney? That's a dangerous, slippery slope. I'll have no part of it. I defend attacking Goldman Sachs bankers on their record. I defend attacking tax evading, Brookfield asset managers, union busting, tax avoiding Brookfield asset managers running for prime minister. I do. I defend it. You might not like that. I understand. Not everybody likes that. Some people are really concerned. but that's an election. People say it's not a good time. But when is a good time if not an election? That is a dangerous, slippery slope. This reduction to a two-party system is super, super dangerous. It's what resulted in Donald Trump in the United States. And there is not a scenario where I would join the Liberal Party for some mega, like, corporate liberal light. Like, I wouldn't do it. I could have run as a liberal. I'm not a liberal. I would never join the Liberal Party. Would I cooperate them to improve the material conditions for people? Yes. I would cooperate with the Greens. I would cooperate with anybody if the policy improves the material conditions for people in Hamilton. If it does not, I'm going to take a hard pass. That's how I work. Shout out to Fifi's Fight, fellow Hamiltonian. I appreciate it. I'm trying to keep up. I love the comments in the comment section. Attack ads are irritating. Perhaps, the communications I have presents my compelling alternative, but there also has to be a contrast. Mark Carney has not been vetted. We're not actually going to find out who Mark Carney is for several months. By that time, it could be too late either way. I don't know. I don't know who he is. I know what he's done, and his track record deserves critique. All of us do. You know what I've done. My record is public record. You can visit openparliament.ca and you can critique my track record any day. Parliament to the people. I'm being accountable. This is a digital door knock. We go door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. We're also doing digital door knocks, digital town halls, having these discussions. I would love for you all to join me in the next one. You can do that by clicking on the link that I put to the different platforms. In the meantime, solidarity forever. If you're feeling afraid, reach out to your neighbors. If you're feeling like you're powerless, go join a campaign that speaks to you. I'm even saying that in a nonpartisan way. Find people who share your values, build community, and join that effort to build